that too. You take all of the states along the East Coast, from Maine to Florida, and then you enforce very strict hiring laws that every person on your payroll must be verified by E-Verify. And so then that'll make them come west a little bit. And then next year you take the states next to those states, all down from Canada to the Gulf, and you get tough on those states. And you gradually keep moving over. You get to Texas, then you start up at Canada, and you start coming down. Move in. Then there has to be a rush across the border. But we have to make sure that they're legal, and if you enforce all the laws, then you can do that. So that would create a lot of jobs. And then they say that these illegals do jobs that most people won't do. Well, it depends on how bad you'd like to eat. If you really have a problem finding enough food to eat, you'll find lots of jobs that you'll do. And then we can set up some legal way that we can allow migrant workers to come into the United States, but under very tight control, and set limits, and that they pay taxes and so forth. But at the end of their term, whether it's 6 months or a year, they'd better go back to Mexico, or they'll end up in Huscal. But we can do all this in a legal fashion if we really want to. Now, there's another problem that we have, and that's radical Islamists. Most of the Islamists around the world are very decent and nice people, but there are very few that have reinterpreted their religion to say that we will go to heaven and have 7 virgins waiting on us if we kill a non-Islamic person. And we had a great example of that in Fort Hood. The guy killed 13 people, and he ended up with 4 bullet holes in him, and his spine. He got a bullet in his spine, so he'll be a cripple all his life. Now, he would love to go to Allah land and be a martyr. So it's my recommendation that they don't sentence him to death, that they sentence him to solitary confinement for the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Give him food, let him live with his problems. Let him pay that price and not become a martyr. But don't allow him any way to commit suicide, because that's what he wants to do. But the Prime Minister of Australia handled the radical Islamists question very readily. He did a public speech, and he said, this is Australia, we have our customs and our preferences, and if you don't like them, go back to where you came from. And if you get out of line, we're going to send you back to where you came from. And they're not hampered by political correctness in Australia. And so they can, when somebody wants to wave their flag and riot and protest to change customs or whatever, grab them all up and put them on a plane and send them back where they came from. Now, a lot of people are not aware that part of our job problem is because union officials were drafted by the elite. And I have absolute concrete evidence of it. George Meany was president of AFL-CIO from 1955 to 1979. He was on the CIA payroll. I have absolute evidence of that. John Sweeney was president of the AFL-CIO from 1995 up until just recently. He was Council of Foreign Relations. Linda Chavez Thompson was Executive Vice President of AFL-CIO, Council of Foreign Relations. Joseph Lane Kirkland, former President of AFL-CIO from 79 to 95, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. Lynn Russell Williams, International President of the United Steelworkers, member of the Bilderbergs. Jack Shankman, President of Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union, Bilderbergs, and Council of Foreign Relations. Now, almost all textile jobs have left the continent of the United States because Jack Shankman, President of Amalgamated Clothing Workers, and Albert Shanker, President of the American Federation of, Jay Mazur, President of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. So they allowed all these clothing and textile jobs to be exported. Now, David Rockefeller took over the Council of Foreign Relations as a chairman in 1975. And I have a graph in my book that shows that lockouts and strikes peaked in 1975 and are headed towards zero because the elite have taken over the unions. And the answer to that is all union members must be notified that this is going on, and that anybody running for any union job should swear that they are or not part of any secret group. And we don't have to have any business meddling with union affairs, but the union members should care. They shouldn't give their dues to somebody that's sold them out. All right, now one subject that really bothers me, and that's war. The wife of the first person to be called Rothschild, her name was Goodly Snapper, wife of Meyer Amschel Bayer Rothschild, once said, "If my sons do not want wars, there will be none." At that time, her 5 sons and her husband were in charge of the 6 major financial regions of all Western Europe. And then there's an article appeared in the Palgrave's Directory of Money and Finance that said, a long-running joke, not without some foundation, was that no prince could make war in Europe without the permission of the Rothschilds. They finance all wars. They finance both sides. They finance the reconstruction of the nations destroyed in the wars. So they make money off of wars. And in the book I list all of the wars from about 1793 up until today. And then if you only look at the wars that the United States was involved in, say from 1900 until today, there have been 695,000 of our military people killed since 1900. 695,000. 1.2 million wounded at a cost of $10 trillion since 1900. And that's the reason I say bring them all home. And probably the